Hey everyone, welcome to the YMS Podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Colin Mansfield. I'm joined, as always, by Seve Carnera. You want to say hi, Seve?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Nice shirt, Colin. I like it.
Oh, yeah, we're matchy today, man. We got twinning. Yay. I got this one for free. I don't know about you.
I did too, yeah.
Very good. Well, hey, today on the show, we're talking about cost savings with yard management solutions. We've sort of talked about this through a variety of lenses. Every other week on the show, we bring you a new topic specifically about yard management and supply chain. And a lot of these topics have in some way, shape, or form to do with cost savings. But we realized we've never actually sat down and just done an episode specifically about the different ways that you can save money with a YMS. As longtime listeners of the show, I'm sure know, every time that we talk about the logistics industry, we talk about how does yard management fit into that? And for a lot of operations, the unfortunate answer is it doesn't. The yard is somewhat of a black hole or an unknown or unseen area of many operations. And that's to their detriment because as you'll find out today, there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars being left on the table by not investing in a yard management system. And here's the reality, as I'm sure Seve can attribute or attest to, everybody has a yard management system. There's a system in place already, right? The question is not, do you have a system? The question is that system working? And of course, that system might be a spreadsheet. It might be writing on a whiteboard. It might be some sort of bolt-on solution that you invested in when you got a WMS. Or maybe you have a yard management system and it's not working to the extent that you'd like it to. Everybody has a system of managing the yard, but today what we're going to talk about is for a dedicated yard management solution, a dedicated system, software solution that is implemented at your facility. What are the cost savings that you can achieve? So we've got a list here. We're going to talk about trailer movement efficiency. We're going to talk about leased trailers, how you can reduce those, unnecessary leased trailers, automating gate operations, reducing detention fees, improving yard driver efficiency, reducing yard check times, and so many more. Seve, before we jump into some of the details here, I'd love it if from a high level you could talk through, when you've implemented yard management systems for clients, what are some of the areas that they go, holy cow, I didn't even expect that this was going to achieve value or save me money? You know, how do those conversations usually go?
Yeah, good point, Colin. Typically, you have meetings after the go live and you review what happened, things that went well, things that didn't go well. You include those conversations with the customer as well too. But one that I've really picked up, especially here over the past few years, has been the ability to eliminate the time or minimize the time that it takes a driver to create or finish a move request. And you've heard me say this over and over in the past that, you eliminate that Easter egg hunt through the entire yard looking for that particular unit because now the driver knows exactly where to pick it up, where to go drop it off, and what task he's actually completing during that process. So whether it be an actual move request, whether it be a pre-call task, for example, drivers' efficiencies go skyrocket when they start using these systems. Number one, the drivers themselves are typically the first ones to push back on the technology, but they are also the first ones to embrace it after the fact because they realize how much easier it helps make their job. But without a doubt, from management, that is one of the first things that most people notice because it's quick data that's available through the system. Within a couple of days, a couple of weeks, you have plenty of data there to see on move requests, where with other things, it takes a little bit more time to build up that data. With move requests, you can see a big improvement initially right after implementation.
Well, let's dig a little bit deeper on that because I think that is a great place to start improving yard driver efficiency. I mean, we've had stories where one of our customers, I probably shared this on the show before, they're a cold storage operation. And so the guys and gals that work in their facility, before having a YMS, if they needed to go find a trailer, they actually had to go find it. Talk about an Easter egg hunt. They had to take off all their cold weather gear, walk out into the yard, locate the trailer, figure out what's going on with it, walk back into the facility. These are freezer facilities, so they got these cold winter jackets and everything. They put them back on. Okay, now we can now we have a solution. Now we can make a decision. Going from that to I can just open up my laptop, log in real quick, get the status, I'm done, is just night and day. And for them, that meant from 35 minutes to 40 minutes to just a couple seconds of looking on a screen. So an incredible amount of time savings there that then, of course, over time, over the days and months and years of utilizing the system, that just adds up in astonishing ways. So that's number one. From a cost saving standpoint, time is huge, especially when we talk about those yard drivers, not only for people going out and doing those yard checks, but then the yard drivers themselves out in the yard who are rolling around looking for those trailers. Now they have a very clear description on a tablet right in the cab of their vehicle that says, go here, here's the trailer, move it here, right? So very, very easy. That also, by the way, has these downstream effects. We've talked about efficiency as far as going green and emission savings, where now yard drivers aren't deadheading across the yard. You want to talk about that a little bit, Seve? What does that mean when an operation says, oh gosh, they got a deadhead, they got to look for something?
Yeah, so typically in the industry, what they mean when they say deadhead is you have a driver that, let's say for example, you have two facilities, a manufacturing plant and a distribution center. Well, they can manufacture the product in one plant, but then they send that product over to the DC for it to be available to be shipped out. So you send a shuttle driver over there to take that trailer over there, and what does that shuttle driver do? Instead of picking up another empty or another trailer full of product, raw materials, for example, that may need to go back to the manufacturing plant, they go back without a trailer. So you try and minimize those activities so that those drivers are constantly hooked to a trailer, with the exception of when they're dropping that trailer either at a door or at a parking spot. But essentially, that's the component there that you really want to look for, is to make sure, to your point, you're not deadheading and you're not having drivers drive in a certain direction or either direction without a trailer hooked up to the back of their cab.
Well, these fuel costs, not only from a CO2 emission standpoint, but the costs alone of just driving around looking for something, or even if you know exactly where it is, still moving across the yard without making an additional move there, that adds up, right? And so we hear all the time companies that are going, we just got to make these guys more efficient. We had a customer that had 3 or 4 yard drivers per shift, and they realized that the actual number of moves they were doing, like actually the moves, moving a trailer that they were doing, they could accomplish with a fraction of that number of people. And so now you can reallocate talent, you can do what you need to do. This is the sort of thing that without the data, without the ability to see how many moves, what's happening over time, it's very difficult to make that decision. It's very difficult to just do it on a gut feeling, right? So what else from a yard driver standpoint, getting at kind of what you're talking about. We had a customer who asked us this question. They had a large campus, 10 or 12 facilities spread across a large campus. And their ask of us when they arrived was, look, we love your driver module. We love how drivers can just have the move. They do it. But it'd be great if you could actually present them with the best move based on their location, based on the facility that they're at, so that the deadhead situation is not across a whole campus, right? And so for this customer, we actually designed an algorithm for them that sent them the next best move based on their location. And we've further now augmented that with using the GPS on those yard driver tablets. So now for any of our customers, using the GPS on the tablets, we can assign them the next best move based on their current location in the yard. So these are the sorts of tweaks, right? We're not talking about a dramatic overhaul in processes here. This is simply giving the driver a tablet, and now they do the move that's on it for them. But for the efficiency of the facility then can skyrocket, and they can have incredible cost savings.
Yeah, without a doubt, Colin. I love that feature of the solution. And, I've always been a big advocate for it as well, too, when I speak to customers. And I say, you know what, you have 2 options. You can show the drivers all the moves in the queue and they can pick and choose, or we can be a little smarter about this and present the driver the next move that we want them to complete to, again, streamline operations, make them much more efficient. And again, you again see those cost savings right off the bat when you start doing those types of things as well.
Absolutely. Let's talk about yard checks, because a lot of times this can go hand in hand. I mean, I mentioned the new cold story earlier, but for yard checks, a lot of times the yard drivers may be the ones doing them, or they may at least be doing partial checks. I mean, I've been on operations where these guys or gals have been working at the facility for many years, and they know the yard like the back of their hand. right? So for them, they see a misplaced trailer that's got the wrong SCAC on it. That shouldn't be there. It's almost this intuition, right? So a lot of times what I've seen from a cost savings perspective, taking that knowledge, that incredible knowledge of the yard, the problem is that only that guy has that knowledge. Not everybody else knows that, right? So if we can have a very easy way for them to fix that mistake, right, and remedy that situation, either on a tablet or by creating their own move or whatever the case is, suddenly that knowledge that guy or gal has that they've developed over, 5-10 years of working at that facility, now everybody reaps the rewards of it, and it's not siloed towards one person. What are some other things in regards to yard checks that you see from a cost-saving standpoint, Seve?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, it's on a digitized format, so that helps tremendously. To your point, a lot of companies have a YMS solution, and that yard check may be a pencil and paper that they write all this information down and then go inside and enter it into a spreadsheet. Again, the challenge with that, though, is by the time you've entered that information into the spreadsheet, that yard is alive and kicking, and you have a lot of changes that are going on out there. With a solution like ours, though, since it's real time, as you're driving the yard and making those changes, everyone's seeing those changes when they're done, number one. Number two, it's a very quick process now to do this as well, too, because if you have a yard driver that's doing it, and let's say they're doing it at night, they can drive in that yard truck, they can shine their spotlight on their yard truck to that trailer number, SCAC code, etc., and they can just go downtown and run through those trailers and update the solution very quickly. If you're doing that by hand, you have to be carrying that flashlight, making sure you got the right trailer number, making sure it's not raining outside. I mean, there's just way too many other variables that come into play with that. But when you have a solution that allows you to do it through a system, obviously it speeds up the ability to be able to do it, number one. And then number two, you're getting more information in the hands of people much quicker than you would if you were doing it, the old paper and pencil type format.
Well, we've all seen those inventory sheets with the highlights of different colors on them from the, yard checks over and over again. And then you got to, is there an orange highlight on that? I can't really tell. And like you mentioned, Rain, I was talking with a truck driver who used to be a yard driver at one point, and he was saying they had some insider knowledge that if you microwaved a piece of paper for 3 seconds, it would dry it out just enough on a rainy day so you could get that next highlight or pencil mark in. It's like, dude, if that's what we're resorting to get accurate inventory on our yard, shame on us, man. That is brutal. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. So for us, providing a very easy way for yard drivers to do this, or if you got an employee that's out there doing a temp check on reefers, or you got somebody who's just making sure that everything's squared away, they're not having to then take that and put it into a spreadsheet and spend all that extra time. So for that reason, 50% is sort of our mark on the wall. We're going to save you 50% of the time on a yard check. A lot of times our customers find themselves doing fewer yard checks anyhow. But that alone is a huge amount of cost savings.
Yeah.
All right, Seve, your favorite part of the yard. I don't actually know if this is true. Your favorite part of the yard, the gate. The gate. We've talked about this a lot, right? And how the gate is this giant source of a lot of times frustration. Talk to us a little bit about why that's the case and what can we do? What does our solution do? What do yard management systems do to help remedy that?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, the gate is a very can be very complicated, can be very busy, can be a very dangerous area as well too. So anything that you can do from a solution standpoint, from a process standpoint, to mitigate all those types of activities, or the mitigate any types of accidents occurring, etc., are important, obviously. But again, instead of having a YMS solution where, again, that process may be taking down that driver's information on a clipboard, asking them for his driver's license, or asking them for any additional information that's required to enter the facility, and then writing all that down, there's ways to speed up that process. And we've talked about this as well, too. Whether it be QR codes, whether it be the ability to take pictures at the gate of documents that need to be captured in order to arrive that trailer. There's ways of really expediting those processes at the gates. And again, that can be a huge cost savings feature as well too. Those individuals at the gates, we've talked about this before, Colin. It's a tough job. They're dealing with a lot of drivers that sometimes are not in the best of moods. And again, not speaking for all drivers, but I've seen it happen before. You just want to make sure that you make that experience as good as possible, making sure that everyone gets the information they need, both driver and individual at the gate, that's communicated easily, and then that there's no confusion as well too, so that when you expect a trader to show up at a dock door for a live load, for example, it's there at that dock door. Or if you've assigned them a parking area, that it's in that parking area. But without a doubt, that's another huge area where there can be a lot of cost savings. And again, it's hard to put numbers. You can put hard numbers on those, but there's really some soft numbers associated with this as well too, that it's difficult to put numbers against. But when you see those operations streamlined in that fashion, it quickly makes you realize how more efficient you can become, and the process can be so much easier as well.
Well, and there's this other element to it that I don't think a lot of people realize, which is when you bring on a yard management system, similar, if you bring on a warehouse management system, let's talk about that. You bring on a warehouse management system, what are you going to do? You're going to analyze your processes and you're going to figure out, okay, what are some ways that we can streamline this, right? It's an opportunity. It's a system that you're implementing, but it's also an opportunity to look at current processes and make some decisions and maybe some adjustments. It's very similar with the yard management system. And at the gate, I mean, we see this all the time. A lot of times folks are writing down stuff. You go, what are you doing with that information? Oh, I took down their driver's license number. Okay, what do you do with that? Well, I put it on the spreadsheet and we print it out and we put it in the pile, and that pile's next to 4 other piles that are in the back of the guard shack. And what do you do with that? Well, every 6 months we bring it over to the storage location. They sit in another pile. You go, what's the point, right? And some operations are doing it because it's always been done. They're doing it because what if we need it someday? Having the opportunity for someone like yourself, for example, to come in and say, hey, guys, let's capture what we need to capture. But if we don't need to capture it, then let's not.
Capture it. Yeah.
and it's an opportunity to look at that, right? The other side of this is there's opportunities to not only overhaul and streamline current processes, but to look at what if we did it differently altogether, right? So we've had customers who go, okay, we've got a receiving office. Those truck drivers come in, they park their vehicle, they walk into the receiving office, and then we've got a line. And they've got to wait in line. They got their paperwork. What if we could have a driver self-check-in area, right? Where they go in, they've got a tablet or there's a computer there and they can just boom, 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 they're done, right? Tells them where to park. So we designed that. We built it. We launched it. Another example of this would be a kiosk actually at the physical gate, right? So that the driver cannot be allowed entrance until they use the touchscreen kiosk, put in their appointment information. There's also OCR options out there and some great hardware folks that are making it happen with cameras. So there are lots of options here. If you were to eliminate or drastically reduce your need for 24/7 personnel at the gate, depending on what you're paying your employees, that could be $22.50 an hour. You're looking at, for a 24-hour operation, probably a couple people at the guard shack. You could be looking at, for 2 people, that's about $400,000 a year in savings if you were to reduce that headcount by 2. So when we look at hard numbers, that's one way you can look at it. And to your point, Seve, there's lots of other soft ways you can look at it, right? Eliminating frustration, right? Getting rid of people who are getting rid of issues where people are feeling like the finger is constantly pointed at them, right? Rather than, hey, let's just get them in, let's get the operation moving. So this is both hard and soft value, but certainly cost savings to be had there.
For sure.
All right, let's talk about KPIs here for a minute. So it's easy to think about, in general, what are the physical ways that a YMS is going to improve an operation, right? The gate, we talked about yard drivers. These are tangible ways that people are using a tablet or in their vehicle, making it happen. But then there's these longer-term cost savings, right? And we've mentioned this in a previous episode. KPIs, I always joke, people come to us for the really cool, sexy eagle view, but they stay with us for the reports because that's really over time where you're going to achieve your value. So from a KPI standpoint, if we've got any number junkies that are listening or watching this podcast, what's the benefit there, Seve, from a KPI standpoint?
Yeah, so obviously management likes to see hard numbers over a period of time as to how the actual facility is performing, And when you can provide them with numbers, for example, like the number of yard moves that a driver could complete in a day, or the number of yard moves completed by all yard drivers in a day as well. Things like that. Things like how many inbound and outbound traders have I had come in through the facility here in the past week? Things like that will help tremendously so that you can share that information with executives within the organization, with team managers, with managers at the dock. It really gives them a good idea of how the performance of that operation is going. You can do things as well too as identifying how long traders are sitting at dock doors, how long are they taking to be loaded or unloaded. All those little pieces of the pie take some time. And then when you have those KPIs, you can adjust and say, hey, we had a trader at a specific dock door that was never started to either load or unload, but it sat there for 2 or 3 hours. We need to make our process a little smoother so that these traders just don't sit there without any activity being done to them. Let's not use it as a parking spot, for example.
Yeah.
So things like that can definitely help you streamline operations when you have the data to then identify what's going on at the facility versus, again, like I've told customers before, instead of just what you're visually seeing occurring at the yard, now you have actual data to back up what you're seeing. And now you can make those important business decisions based on data versus what you're just observing.
Exactly. Well, and having a centralized source of truth, right? That's invaluable. And we think about this in our own lives and certainly in other business areas, where we go, okay, we're going to make this decision. We're going to make it based on the facts that we know, and we can project those out and we can make some assumptions. And then we have, a course of action that we can pursue. And it's the same thing in the yard. One of the differences is that not only can you have that, but you can also provide that sort of level of visibility to outside entities if you'd like as well. So, for example, a lot of our customers work with a wide variety of carriers, right? We have 3PL customers, for example, who work with, and in some cases, these are dedicated carriers, and in some cases, it's a one-off. But in many, many cases, the ability to provide that carrier with a level of access to the data so that they can see how their actual assets have performed or how long they've been in the yard or, accruing detention fees, those sorts of things. Now there's no finger pointing or guessing game. You're all working on the same sheet of music, and you have the answers right in front of you. So it's not so much waving a magic wand as it is shedding a light on dark corners that previously would be a gut feeling, or like you're saying, Seve, just you observe it, but you don't know if that's a trend. Now you can identify, hey, this is a trend over time. Every peak season this happens, right? And so now that we know that, we can plan ahead and go, okay, this peak season, it's not going to happen. And we've had one of our customers that does, package delivery here in the U.S. They last year reported back to us it was their first peak season ever where they did not lose a trailer. They had 0 lost trailers on the yard, and that is that's the best. Talk about a pat on the back. That's the best thing I could ever hear, and that's really the goal here: is ultimate visibility, never losing an asset, knowing exactly what's happening, and then solving issues with the data to know that they're there. So from a cost-saving standpoint, how do you put a dollar amount on that? Well, that's going to be different for every operation, right?
Yep.
Some operations, that's going to be detention, which is my natural segue into detention. So let's dig deep on that, Seve. What are some of the big causes of, and when I say detention, I'm really talking driver detention primarily. What are some of the big causes of that in the yard?
Yeah, the biggest thing, Colin, is that obviously a lot of times organizations don't have a good grasp of what that detention time looks like, how long it's lasted, have they gone over time, how much more time do they have before they go into that detention time frame. So, again, a beautiful feature within our solution is the fact that we can set up alerts to make management aware of those situations so they can take action on them. Again, if you have a system, it's very hard to put a stopwatch on a trader when it comes in the gate and then determine what time did it come in, how long has it been in here, et cetera, et cetera. But with a system like ours, it takes care of all of that. You don't have to really worry about that. You set it up once, and now you know exactly how much time you have with your unit. So, For example, if you have 4 free hours of free time and you start getting up to hour number 2, you want an alert to pop up to say, hey, we've got 2 more hours before we start incurring fees. That's a great feature in that, again, it will help you minimize those detention and demurrage fees. I know you like to describe it as detention busters. I'm more of the type that will describe it more as we will help you manage those detention fees much, much better. Because again, you will have the data, you will have the insight as to what's going on with those units. And then at that point, you can decide what you're going to do next. Am I going to go ahead and get that trailer to a dock door and get it out of here, or empty it and put it back in the yard and inform the carrier that it's ready to be picked up? Or am I going to incur the fee for that trailer because at some point later in the day, I may need that unit? So again, it helps you make those business decisions. And again, it helps you curve down those expenses that you may not want, obviously, and eliminate those as you move forward. Again, to your point, a great way of cost savings. I spoke to a customer just yesterday, and they told us that they were spending approximately $50,000 a month on detention fees. When I hear those numbers, the first thing I think is we can very easily supply you with a solution that won't cost you that much for a year that will take care of that problem that you're spending in just 1 month per year. So it's incredible how few companies really have a grip on that, and then they realize they need a system to help manage that. And once they do, they realize, wow, I can almost eliminate all my detention fees at this point.
And that's it, man. Well, like you said, it's informed decision making. If you don't have an easy way to view a problem, how can you solve it?
Sure.
And this is the case in every area of the yard, but especially detention. To your point, a lot of companies, kind of, and I've never heard it actually said this way necessarily with these exact words, but the disposition that some folks in the industry come at it is like, it's kind of, that's just what we pay.
Part of doing business.
Yeah, it's the cost of doing business, man. And unfortunately, in some cases, sure, if you know that you're going to include that fee and you're able to make that informed decision, but in many cases, it's just they're paying wads of cash out and don't have a good way to track that. So certainly from a detention, our mark on the wall is 90 to 95% of unnecessary detention, right? So you're going to be able to see exactly on our solution. We turn a trailer red when it's accruing fees. And in advance of that, we're actually going to alert you and put a little stripe on it so you know ahead of time. These are some ways, send you an email, send you a text message, escalate it to different layers of management so that everybody knows when there's a problem, what needs to happen to resolve it. Some of the outlier numbers we've heard, the big numbers that we've heard, and I think this client that you spoke with would be a good example of this if we can bring the same level. But like Michelin Tire, they had $2.5 million at one facility saved in a year on detention. Another facility, $450,000 a year. Not every facility has those numbers, but if you have any that's eaten into your budget, right, we're going to help you resolve that. So that's a very clear, one of the clearest cost savings that we can throw out, I think.
Yeah.
So wrapping up here, Seve, you've told the story in the past of saving one of your customers a bacon, right, and product protection. We've talked about that probably ad nauseum in other episodes of the show. So if you haven't heard, we did a whole episode just on product protection. How do you protect those reefer units? But just in a short soundbite here, what are some of the cost savings that customers can expect to see when it comes to reefer operations and managing those?
Yeah, so obviously the biggest one for sure is making sure that you don't have any spoilage out in the yard in one of your units. That's really, really, really critical. Another big impact that we've seen here recently, Colin, as well too, is we've had customers come to us with requests to, for example, monitor how much fuel we're putting back into a unit so that organization can then bill that carrier back for those fees. Similarly as well too, now with those containers that have the ability to be plugged into a wall to keep that reefer running versus using fuel, that has been another request that has been made. And as we've got solutions for that in place now. But essentially, those are, again, in that electrical scenario, they're billing back per kilowatt hour back to the carrier what they're spending on keeping that thing up and running. So again, super great ideas that I love working on when customers come and bring us these types of use cases, because it's our job to find a solution, and I love doing that. But those are definitely some of the areas where the product protection piece can help save a lot of money, whether it be through fuel or electricity that you're spending on keeping those units running, or just by the mere fact that you're making sure that your product in the yard is not going to spoil while it's sitting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, on that same, it kind of ties in some of the other things we talked about, reducing the time it takes to do yard checks and reducing the number of yard checks. Same can be applied to temperature checks. If you want to be alerted if there's a temperature related issue in the yard or something needs to be refueled, all the way to what you're saying, which is how do we actually additional cost savings of billing back? Hey, when it was on the yard, we used our own resources to supply that with fuel or with energy. Just ingenious, right? It's brilliant. And those are the types of things. Again, those customers, by the way, those reefer customers that came to us originally did not come to us asking, hey, we want to bill back, on reefer units. What they came to us was, we don't want any spoilage, right? We don't want any spoilage. But now, a year, 2 years on, now they're looking at additional ways to increase their cost savings. So not only is there an immediate impact after implementing a YMS, but there's also this over time. Now you have the bandwidth and the visibility to look at all kinds of areas you never thought possible. The last one I want to end with here is just overall visibility. And this one is, again, a little bit harder to put a specific number on, but I'm going to try. So the idea here is that without a system that's giving you immediate top-down visibility at a glance of what's happening, alerts, intelligent awareness, guiding your yard drivers to the best areas of the yard, and then showing that on a map, all of those things tied together give you this sense, management as well as down to individual employees, the sense of we know what we're doing. We know what's happening on the yard. We had a customer who, they came to us because they had all these leased trailers. And they said, hey, is there a way that we can reduce these? We don't know how many we can get rid of and still be effective. And so we helped them. We basically, using the visual map, we turned unused leased trailers a different color, made them bounce up and down on the screen, letting them know, hey, these are not being used for the last 30 days. And they were able to get rid of 30 of those, saved them, $180,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
Immediately, instant. So these are the types of very easy things. Again, there was no change in process. There was no change in what they were doing. What it was a overall sense of visibility that now they can take, they can apply, they can make business decisions on, and they can save money. So with that, I think that's a good place to wrap up. What do you think, Seve? Anything else we missed?
I don't think so, Colin. Like I said, I like that shirt.
Thank you. Hey, Seve and I have got all kinds of episodes on here. So what I'd love you to do is subscribe on YouTube. I'd love you to follow us on Spotify. Give us a good review if you like the show. We've got all kinds of episodes out there. If you're a company who's interested in being on the show, we'd love to have you. Shoot us a message on LinkedIn. You can find Seve and I, as well as our company, Yard Management Solutions, on LinkedIn. For now, I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. For those affected by the hurricane and the strike going on and all this other craziness out in the world, our thoughts and prayers, of course, go out to you, but also we just hope that you're doing okay. So everybody out there, have a great rest of your week. We look forward to being with you on the next show here. Bye for now.